Right, I'm just going to check that. We look pretty great. You look pretty great. I look pretty pink.
Good.
Sweet. Yeah.
Like ham.
I look like ham. Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Welcome to my YouTube station.
Yes, this is a great station.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're in the mix cave today. What do you think?
I'm super jealous. It's not anything. I mean, my mix cave is not a patch on this mix cave. It's probably
Really?
like a quarter big, and most of it is full of Thundercats toys.
Cool.
So
Well, it's good you have a mix cave though. That's cool.
I do like. I mean, if you'd heard my mixes, you might not be so complimentary.
Okay. Maybe that's another video we can do where I just pick apart your mixes and...
Please, that would be so excellent. That would really need to happen. They're
Yeah.
absolute balls.
Balls.
They're terrible.
Thank you very much for coming down.
You're welcome.
And chatting to me. I bet I've written down some questions. I've actually...
Have you actually?
Yeah, yeah.
Then let me see them. I want to be surprised.
All right, all right.
Let's fill. What do I do to fill?
You just...
I don't have any celebrity impressions or anything.
That's it, because I can't edit, so I'm not going to edit this.
You're not going to edit? Okay, all right.
No, I am going to edit it.
You got right on time.
But not because my voice is...
Yeah.
I did a big rehearsal yesterday and I used all my voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you just want to...
Right on time. Right, thank you, baby.
So it doesn't have to sound good.
I do like a weirdly specific Suggs impression of one particular Madness record, but if
Go
you
on.
haven't heard it... No, it's not. I'm not even going to do it.
As we warm up, maybe.
Yeah,
If you
I'll
just
slip
feel it.
I'll slip
Yeah,
it in.
yeah.
But it's like late 80s Suggs, not early suede heads, cheeky chappy Suggs.
Yeah.
Watch it on the sofa with the... Oh my God, why haven't I
just-
told you before not to do it?
Jamie,
Hello.
hello. What are you up to at the moment?
What am I up to at the moment? Well, at the moment, I'm sort of in the throes of two very big projects. One is my new album, Shuffle, and two is Lenmania 2 / The Road to Lenmania, which is... Road to Lenmania is a series of shows, 2 shows, that lead up to Lenmania 2, which is a whole stage at 2,000 Trees, and they're sort of connected because...
Oh, cool. I didn't know about the
Oh, yeah.
2000 Trees thing. Cool.
I think they've given us the whole cave stage, I think.
Which one's the cave stage? Is that the...
I think it's the 3rd stage. So you've got the main stage, then the Axiom stage,
Yeah.
and then the cave. If I'm correct, and if I'm not,
Yes.
it's a different
yeah.
stage.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
And on the
That'd be
Thursday,
great.
that's all us, Lenmania 2, because you yourself are a Lenmania veteran.
Yeah.
You were there right at the start
I
of
was
the
there
first
at the
Lenmania.
very beginning.
In fact, we broke the first band on
After you.
after me. And
Yeah.
I ran upstairs just to catch the last Broker song. And in fact, you played Talk again in soundcheck for me,
Yeah,
because I knew
we
I wasn't
did.
going to be able to text it. It was so nice. So I got my own command performance. That's what Lenmania is all about, is that
Yeah.
I book my favourite bands so I can watch them. And on the day, I'm so busy with like press and interviews that I don't actually get to see anyone. So it's it's a false premise. But
It's
everyone
like-
else will
It's
enjoy
like
it.
throwing a house party, isn't it?
It's like throwing my own party. Yeah,
And then you have to clean up afterwards as well.
that's
Just
exactly it.
walking around
Everyone
with a
pick
bin
up
of
2
bag.
bits of litter.
Yeah.
Everyone pick up 2 plectrums.
Oh,
So,
look,
yeah.
I do remember the balloons at the back. I kept,
The legendary balloons, they stayed up all night.
but I'm sure I changed the spelling at some point because
I was worried
just
about
kept getting
what they would
caught on it.
eventually spell.
Yeah.
And were there any rude words that you could make out of Lenmania? Menial, that's about as rude as it can get.
that's one for the comments section,
Okay,
isn't
menial.
it? Menial.
Yeah. What rude words can you make out of Lenmania that the balloons could have spelt? You're good at this. I need more competitions.
I'm good with concepts,
Yeah.
not really following them
Not
through.
really with execution. Okay,
Yeah.
shame. Sad.
But there you go. There's a big prize.
There is.
What's the prize?
The prize is... What is it? You
We
can have...
talked about this.
You can have this plectrum from
Cool.
my actual pocket. There you go. Which
Yeah.
is why I do Lenmania to harvest all the plectrums for the bands. So this is the prize for the best rude word you can make out of Lenmania. I'm going to put it there so you
Yeah.
can see under the gaze of Frederick Merculum. Here, there's the plectrum that
And
you
I'll
can
definitely, I'll post it to whoever.
for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. This is about studio things, isn't it, really?
That's why you lured me here.
Yeah, I mean, I've let you plug
This is
stuff
not
now.
as on my way home as I thought it was. So I hope that we get to talk about studio things.
Yeah.
Because I do like the studios. I sort of fear and respect the studio.
Yeah.
I don't
okay.
understand it. It's like how ancient people used to view the sun.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, but thanks. You know,
Yeah.
thanks
So
for the crops.
Is it a bit of a like mystery still to you? Is there a mystery aspect? Have you got into the kind of geeky? You said you've got your home set up and stuff. To like,
Yeah,
have you
but
got,
my home
got
setup.
geeky on it at all, or are
No,
you just
not at all. It's Cubase elements for
Yeah.
children. Cubase kids in
Yeah.
like bubble writing, and that's
Cool.
how I do all my demos. And I send it to
Yeah.
producers, and they go, and then they make a record. Yeah, no, I did music tech at A level,
really?
and I
Okay.
was awful at it. And I only got an A because my music teacher did my entire coursework for me. What a genius! Thanks.
nice.
And
They
I
might
just never understood it.
retrospectively take that off you now. You realise
That's fine. I didn't go to university, as
That's cool.
anyone who's followed my career will know. So it didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So that you can repeal it. Oh man! But then because my A levels spelled ABBA, I got 2 B's and 2 A's.
Oh, cool.
So then they'd only spell bar. Yeah, no, they'd spell bab.
Yeah.
I quite like that. That's fine.
Bab.
Take away the A. I don't
It's
even
fine.
need it. Bab,
We're
I
cool
could
with
do
that.
with bab. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Nice. What was your first studio experience like?
My first studio experience was probably, and I was thinking about this the other day, was when. Oh no, I know what my first studio experience was. It was really amazing, and we really enjoyed it. Because when we were at school, my first band, like most people's first bands, it's like sort of a school band. Were you in a school band?
Yeah.
I'm quite fond of. What was your school band's name? The best
we
one.
had several.
Come on, give me the best one.
Honey Toe was the best one. I
Honey
think.
Toe.
Honey Toe. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool name.
You reckon?
Yeah, that's a little bit like 90s Seattle because of mud. Honey Toe.
Yeah.
I like that. We were called Vodka Lily. Because it was like alcohol.
We
and
were
flour.
briefly called Angel Dust.
We were called Angel.
Really?
Yes. Angel
There you go.
Dust. I like that. Because
But then my
of the
dad
no mo-
phoned someone who's a policeman to ask it because he was like, I'm sure that's drugs related. And he phoned his mate. And then he was
Wow.
like, and his friend was like, yes, it's slang for heroin. So
But
we
those
weren't
are the days
allowed to be
when you
called
have to
it.
call a policeman to check if your band name is I.
I was like,
Yeah.
I thought that name was a bit cool.
It was cool. It is cool. Yeah. No, that's funny that we were in the same band. But in school, we had, and I like the concept and the culture of school bands because it's really important. It feels like
Yeah,
a
it's
microcosm
amazing.
of the local scene. Before you get out onto the local scene in your area, and then if you're lucky enough, you break onto the countrywide scene or the international scene or whatever.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
school can be its own scene. There were loads of bands fighting, and I had a band, Vodka Lily. That were everyone from different years. I was the youngest guy in it, and there were other people. And John, who was in Reuben, he was in the year above me, and he was in it. And we had loads of other people. And our drummer was in the sixth form, and he had
Yeah.
a car. And I was like
That's-
13, so that was a big
seriously
deal. So we
cool.
could like go places in his car. Paul Brady, great guy, he had an undercut. And his buddies who'd been in the year above him, it all went up. It was stratified. Had just started on the Tom Meister course at Surrey Uni,
Yeah.
which is just down the road for us. So one of his buddies who just started, because the first year students all engineer for the second year students and whatever, he was like, my pal is engineering for one of the second year Tom Meister students. They get like these amazing studios in Surrey University. They can just have it overnight from when they basically the caretakers lock you in from like 10 at night to 10 in the morning. You could do whatever you want in that time.
Amazing.
And so my first experience in a studio was getting locked in at Surrey University with my band of mates.
Yeah.
And in 12 hours, we just recorded like every song we had, and we mixed it in like one 12-hour session, and it was amazing. It was such a
cool.
great introduction to it. And the tapes came out shit, because obviously they were just like second year Tom Meister students, and some of them are very successful engineers now that work for like big studios. So sorry I said uni projects were shit. They did sound terrible, but we had so much fun.
Name names.
Name names. No, I won't. I won't. It was, who was it? Nigel Godrich. He was one of them.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. But to come out of that 12-hour session, like bleary-eyed in the morning, you've survived the whole night and like the chocolate bars down the hall, and you had an album, as far as
Yeah.
you were concerned, 12 or 13 tracks
That's
that you've
it,
done in
yeah.
one go. That was amazing. And to have the run of the place, we were kids, so university was quite a long way from our thinking. For a whole night. That was my first experience of the studio. It's very exciting. The same way Freddie did it, the first album at Trident. Yeah. Oh, I think they're the same thing. Like overnight.
Yeah.
You got locked in. You got until the first real band turns up in the morning, and you better have finished all the dubs on Seven Seas of Rye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. That would have been so cool at that age.
It was really good, and we went back a few times, and the demos got progressively. We got progressively better because we knew more about the studio comparatively. We had some really excellent times. So very positive.
I loved the kind of innocence when I first went to a studio. It was just like you kind of you're in those restrictions and you do what you're told. So I think we did we booked ourselves 3 hours in the studio and we recorded 3 songs or 4 songs. Yeah.
Wow.
But we were just like, just play the song and then you're like, cool, was that all right? You know, if there's a mistake in it, you do it again. So I think
Wow.
But for the shitty kind of stuff we were doing was so simple anyway.
Sure.
And we used to play quite a lot, so we'd get through it.
You can, like, early bands, you spend so much time rehearsing and practicing because it's, if you're lucky, you do it in your garage or someone's outhouse. It's almost free.
Yeah.
When we rehearsed with our bands, it was always in like the front room, so it was free for kids. So that was our leisure time. We had a lot of time to get pretty good. So yeah, when we went in, there weren't too much retakes. And I do sessions now that are only 3 or 4 hours. When you go to the BBC, the last time I went to Maida Vale, we were in and out in like 2-3 hours because the guys know the gear, and
It's
if you
all
know the
set up,
tracks, it's all partially to an extent. And we just bit bam bomb. The last session we did, we played every song once, 4 songs. Great session. So it is possible, as crazy as it sounds now.
Yeah,
you can get some really good sessions in only a couple of hours if you know your shit.
Yeah, now I think there's something good about that because it's you can get caught up in the minutiae.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, way too much. So it's quite nice to do quick live things, I think. And I think you've also got that fearlessness when you're younger as well. You're maybe
this is true.
Just a bit more. You're just like, this is what it is. We've got this time. Let's just do it.
I find it goes
don't overthink it.
It goes in waves. Like we were sort of fearless and scrappy at the start. I was, and then sort of in like, if we're calling this the end of my career, which if we look at the middle of my career, that was when things got really anal and stressful, and every note had to be perfect, and the studio was a hell. And it was like, this is the only representation of this music, and this is going to live forever after we die. They're going to send copies of this into space, and this is what the Martians will hear. You know, it's like life depended on that fucking drum fill, or that note, or this chord. I did that for chord, my voice, and now I'm back in a situation where like whatever happens, and it's much more about the vibe as opposed to like note for note musical precision. So I think I've got a lot looser again, and I enjoy the studio a lot more. It got quite stressful in the middle there.
How much of that was self-imposed as a band, do you think? Like when you
100% of it.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't due to like, I don't know, label pressure and stuff like that? Or...
No, the labels never put much pressure on us. The only time the label actually ever got involved, in fact, the only label that we had was Extra Mile.
Yeah.
And they did, on both the records we did with them, they sort of requested that we put particular songs on. But it was like a very mild suggestion. They didn't really strong arm us, and I don't think we should have. I think that first record is too long. We shouldn't have had Let's Stop Hanging Out. They wanted Let's Stop Hanging Out on it, and we were like, we sort of felt like we'd done it, but we did it because they were our buddies and they'd asked nicely, you know. Retrospect, I wouldn't have had that on there. And again, with the second record, they asked that we record a particular song that we started but didn't finish because it didn't work out. That's as far as they got. They were never like, we're only paying for this much time. Obviously it was finite, but they never really put any pressure on us. The pressure that we put on us was us. And when I say us, I mean me, because I was really hard on those two guys.
Was that because you were like, right, people are listening now? Like, how much of the...
Yeah, well, I suppose so. Definitely by the third one, there was pressure from outside, pressure from the fan base. But it was more just because I got so wound up in, like, what I was writing, the songsmith.
Yeah.
I just felt the pressure of it. And I put a lot of work into writing the songs, and that translated into pressure on John and Guy, who were in the band, and me as well on guitar and vocals, to get it, like I said, laser sharp, exactly perfect.
Yeah.
Because I was convinced that my songs deserved it. I just wanted to do just justice to the songs. And these days, it's just a lot less important. Like I say, I think a really good song can shine through a more vibey performance where everything is not so crystal clear. But in that
Yeah.
middle period towards the end of the band, things got very tense. We were all pushing ourselves very hard because a lot of the bands we were listening to, like Ocean Size and Biffy and Milo, all those bands, Million Dead, they were quite technical, and that's what we were listening to. And
It's just like peer pressure almost.
sort of peer pressure. It was more aspiration. We wanted to.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be in the thing, and the kind of music that was being made was quite cerebral in places, and you can hear that.
I don't necessarily think like peer pressure is a negative term at all. It's
okay, maybe, yeah.
It's like, I think that's what's good about the scene. Like people kind of push each other. It's like
That's the thing.
healthy.
It made everyone better.
competition
It
sort
made
of
everyone
thing.
better.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it resulted in a lot of stress. It probably resulted. They probably all the bands would say the same thing. I'm sure. Yeah.
Do you think you maybe had to go there to come back again? If you know what I mean, it had to do that record where you're like, eyes fire.
I think so. I think so. You had to do it and then realise that actually, oh man, you could probably have done that with like a lot less stress and these things that you really honed in on in the broader picture are so minute. And on the one hand, it's those little details that really make something. On the other hand, there's these. Funnily enough, at the same time we were making those really tense records, I'd sort of started a career in animation as well, and so very often I would be doing the animation work in the studio while I was waiting for like the drum take or the bass take or whatever, or the mixing. And at the same time, an animator buddy who was sort of helping me learn the ropes in animation, I spent like weeks. I remember turning like a little rocket. I had to animate a rocket taking off. And I did every angle of the rocket turning around, like through 360 degrees, like 10 different frames of this rocket. And my buddy was like, how many of those frames is the eye going to see? The rocket like turns around like that quick. You need like that side, and that side. You're wasting your time doing the whole 360. Yeah. And he was like, that's just concentrate on what people are going to see. And the same applies to the music as well.
Yeah,
what are people really gonna? And man, so I draw rockets a lot quicker these days too.
Yeah, make records and draw rockets.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've written here, do you enjoy the studio? I suppose it depends, doesn't it? Like
these days
you do.
And back then I did as well, actually, for all the stress. As I think as the songwriter, the studio is the place where my ideas, like I was saying, the stuff that I've been working really hard on, come to ultimate fruition.
Yeah.
And I still sort of think that, even though I enjoy the live version much more these days, and there's a difference between the live version and the studio version.
Yeah.
But very often, the studio version, by necessity, becomes the definite article, becomes the, what's the word I'm looking for? The definitive version. So I do enjoy the studio, and now I know just a little bit more about it. Mm-hmm. I can say, how about we use that thing, and I can talk on a closer level to the producer. Yeah. Still not quite. They're still like, what you mean is this, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course. But
oh, you mean the 1073?
Absolutely. Whereas before it was like talking to Pythagoras behind his screen.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't let his students see him. He was just a disembodied voice talking about like geometry. And they'd be like, oh, Pythagoras. It was like that with the engineer. They were a separate entity who knew the difference between like artist and technician, I felt at the time. And very often, some of the technicians we would work with, they would hold knowledge. Yeah. We'd say, can you do this thing that I now know is super easy? And they'd be like, oh, no, because I've already pressed this button. Yeah. And we'd be like, oh. And I know that they were just being lazy. Yeah. So now I can call people on their bullshit, is what I'm saying. Watch out if we ever work together, because I know what these buttons do. Some of them, that one.
The red one there.
Absolutely, well, yeah.
Well, there's two red ones on my keyboard.
Well, you got a fancy one. Yeah.
Yep. There we go. Well, okay, I suppose that leads us seamlessly into what do you feel a producer's role is, or what do you like their role to be?
Well, now this is the thing, because I imagine most of the people watching this will understand the separation between producer, engineer, and mixing engineer and mastering engineer.
Maybe they won't.
Well, because sometimes the producer does all of them. And sometimes the producer is really just the vibe person in the back of the room saying a little bit more green. And there's an engineer actually with the microphones and setting up. And so if you take someone like George Martin, he was very much the guy at the back of the room saying, do it like this, do it like that. And that's really a producer who gets the performance. You could say, I'm sure how producers view it, some of the great big producers, I don't know if you view it this way, but you do find producers who, as far as they're concerned, it's their record. They are making a record, and the band or the artists are just their paintbrushes. They're their paints on the canvas.
Facilitating the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
They're their instruments. The band are playing instruments, right? But the producer is playing the band. And really the resultant album is the work of the producer. And I, obviously, as someone in a band, I don't hold with that, but I think it is sometimes possible. And so that's when you get these big super producers that you just say their name and everyone knows, oh, that's what that record is going to sound like. And they more often get credited with making the record. Sometimes they get more credit than the artist.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate producer, some who maybe doesn't even touch a microphone, but just coaxes the performance out of the artist. So that's what a producer sort of means first and foremost to me. Mostly, when I've worked with a producer, they have also been their own engineer. They might have an assistant engineer to literally set up the mics. But a lot of the time, the producers I work with, producers often come up through engineering anyway. So they know their way around the mics. They know what they're doing. It's like me having a guitar tech. I know like where my pedals plug in, but it's such a great help if I have a guitar tech to do that for me so I can concentrate on the performance. And most of the producers I work with are producer engineers. So they will also set up the mics and they know the knobs that do the thing. So that's been my general experience. And also, most of the producers I work with, if not all of them, have also mixed their own stuff as well. Whereas very often you might send it to, like Andy Wallace does a lot of just mixing on his own. He mixes a lot of other people's records. And Chris Sheldon.
Chris Sheldon, Chris Lord-Alge as well.
All these guys, they will... Yeah. In fact, Chris Sheldon mixed, but he didn't produce Colour in the Shape. He mixed it. Yeah. So that's his mix, which is why we loved him. So we knew he was a great mixing engineer as well as a great producer. So all these things are separate. And further still down the line, you've got your mastering engineer who will master it and make sure they just turn it up loud. Mastering engineers, you just turn it up loud. Thanks, but it sounds
Waves,
great.
Just buy Waves L1.
No, mastering engineers are their own thing, and I've worked with some great engineers. But again, you do get producers that do the whole thing. So, for instance, my friend Chris Coulter, who used to play in my backing band, the Heavy Miller band with me, and did Arcane Roots, I think is his biggest thing. He did all their records with them. He does the whole thing. So he engineers, he mixes, he produces, like suggests things, and then he masters it at the end.
So he does the mastering as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's an all-in-one chap.
He's everything. He's the whole package.
He's the whole package.
He'll do your guitars again while you sleep as well.
Yeah,
if he doesn't
right.
like them. And he'll cook you a lunch as well. He's a great cook, Chris Coulter.
Wow.
So yeah, so you can get people that do the whole shebang, and that's great. Or you get people that are very compartmentalized, and I'm cool with that as well. I've never worked with a producer that literally just sits in a chair and doesn't touch anything and brings out the performance.
Kind of Rick Rubin.
Like a Rick Rubin or a Sadi.
Like a and make you listen to
Exactly. But they make... Rick Rubin is one of those names who they just make great records. He, what he did with Johnny Cash, what he did with like a lot of... Did he work with Run DMC? Is that Rick Rubin?
Yeah. I think that was one of his first.
Yeah, that's what made him. And he works with all this stuff. And he did... Did Rick Rubin do those System of a Down records as well? His career is so varied. They're on
Sylvia
American.
Massey did it, but I think maybe with Rick Rubin. I know those two are connected somewhere.
He could just do anything. And he's a very sounds more green guy. I don't know why I'm doing that. And I'd be fascinating to work with such a producer, but
does it depend on the project? Do you think like this person is good for say the last two records you've done, you worked with Space, like was there a particular reason you worked with him?
Yeah.
In terms, did you want him to have more creative control? Not more than you necessarily,
no,
but you wanted
one of the
his
things.
Input creatively as well as
absolutely
his stuff sounds amazing kind of thing.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of factors, like the biggest factor is that we're like super close friends and we hang out all the time anyway.
Right.
The other factor was, yes, I thought his signature sound suited what I wanted to do. And I'll come back to that in a minute because I was thinking about this, about having a signature sound. And thirdly, yes, I was at a time, and I feel bad about this because producers I worked with before, poor guys, they didn't get a fucking word in edgeways because I was so clear on what I wanted and no, we're going to do like this. Poor guys. And how they kept their patience with me, I don't know. Lord love you, all of you. But by the time, just in my life, that I started making the last record, Devolver with Space, and then Shuffle, this new one, I was ready. personally for like outside input. And it's not because I didn't care what the other producers had to say. Well, it is a bit, just because I was so arrogant and pig-headed. I didn't want to hear their ideas, even though their ideas are fantastic. And when I would hear other records that these guys made, I'd think, oh man, we should have got some of them sounds on my record. But I was so bullish about it. Whereas emotionally, personally, by the time I started working with Space, I was a lot more open. So you can hear a lot more of him on those records. And it would be interesting to go back maybe and work with some of those other producers that I still have good relationships with, and maybe be a bit more open and
take a more backseat sort of vibe.
It would be great. It would be great. I'm a lot more open to that now.
I was like, particularly Waterloo Teeth, that track.
Yeah.
Like sonically, sounds incredible. I was really impressed with that.
Oh,
like,
thanks, man. It's really great. I mean, I can't take credit. That Space.
Yeah, knows his stuff.
He does know his stuff. He knows all the
and
knobs.
Chris Coulter as well. Like the last Arcane Roots record as well.
Absolutely,
it's
I think
awesome.
that's his finest hour. But like,
yeah.
Well, I haven't heard the last. Actually, I just co-produced an EP with Chris Coulter, in which I was the Make It Sound Green man.
Oh, so you've not experienced them, but you've been one.
I've been one. I just forgot about that. Yeah, so I went along and because a band that I know from round my way wanted to do an EP, and I heard they were doing it with Chris, and I thought maybe we could really knock it into shape, make something really special, And so I asked Chris if I could go and co-produce the vocals, specifically the vocals, because the singer Ian and I know each other very well, and I knew he had like a little curling in him, and I wanted to see if we could get it out. And Chris is very good at this stuff anyway, but because I've been working with the band as well.
Which band is this?
A band called Man Down.
Man Down.
So I sort of did a bit of pre-production on the songs, then they tracked all the music with Chris and he got the great sounds, and then by the time we went in for vocals and mixing, I sat in and suggested things, and Chris is so generous and non-paranoid about his control. He just sat there the whole time and like everything. I was like, yeah, maybe a bit more this, Chris. Maybe. And he's got like, he knows what he's doing. I'm like, push that button, Chris. He's like, fine. And he did it. And I was like, no, it sounds terrible. Take it off. And he would never got cross with me for getting in his space, because again, we're friends and we've worked together over the years. But it was great for him to allow me to come in and be that sit in a chair type producer where he's like really hands-on engineering as well. So that was a really great experience, and it's going to be a great EP. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Look forward to that. Man Down.
Man Down.
Man Down.
Man Down. Can I come back to what I was saying about signature sound?
Yeah, totally.
I just wanted to say, because I wanted to make the last two records of Space because as I heard it, they would fit his sound. But on the one hand, to say of a producer or of any artist that they have a sound or a look or a style, on the one hand, it is, it's good that you've paid attention to their stuff and you can very often hear a thread, but on the other hand, it's a little bit limiting. And I feel bad when I say, for instance, like, oh, I thought this record would really suit Space's sound. That's just what I took from his body of work. Space and all the other producers I've worked with, including yourself, have a range of sounds. I would still say, like, there's a Mark Roberts sound and I can hear it on your stuff, and that's why I like your stuff. But at the same time, I'm fairly confident that if I came to you and said we're going to make like an 8-bit record, you could step up. And it's similar for me as an illustrator as well. When in my other life where I'm illustrator and designer, I definitely have my own signature style, but I get cross when I pitch for things or I talk to an art editor and they go, oh no, it's you can't do what we want, and I'm like, dude, I can do what you want. I'm versatile enough. Whatever you need, I can tailor it to it. So don't pigeonhole me in whatever style. And it seems unfair to pigeonhole, like I don't want to pigeonhole Space or yours or anyone's sound to say, oh, that was what I wanted for that record, because most artists are capable of a broad range of sounds. And I just wanted to make that point, I don't want to limit or pigeonhole anyone's sound as a producer, because
I think you have to be careful as well about going to a producer because like you love some record that they've done or something, and just going to that guy because of that, and maybe your band has an influence of that. They probably have, if you really love this record and you love the sound, and it's like, do you want to make your own record kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the natural thing to do.
Like, it's like people going to Steve Albini just because they like Nirvana, and
that's what happens though, eh?
It doesn't always suit your band. Like I've literally known bands is one particular band I'm thinking of, and they went and recorded with Albini, spent God knows how much money going over to the States, and it just sounded weird. It didn't.
Did it not work for them?
Not at all. No.
Dude, funny enough, he was one of the producers that back in the day when we were in our band, because obviously we loved Nirvana and we loved the Neutro. Not so much Albini's other records, actually, although he did make one with McCluskey, a couple with McCluskey that I really loved and really worked for them. We were talking about, hey, let's go and record with Albini. Would have been the biggest mistake we'd ever made. It's completely wrong for us. So I'm glad we didn't, Yeah,
it's just choosing the right... Yeah, it's important to choose the right person and for the right reasons. And I suppose it's a bit ambiguous to know what those reasons are, because you should go to someone because you like their sound, but then you just have to draw the lines.
These days, for me, when I choose people to work with, both musicians and engineers, producers, it is much more based on personal relationships and who you can spend a month in a van with, or who you can spend a month in a studio with without clawing each other's eyes out, And it's lucky, and at the start of your career, you don't have many of those relationships. By the time you're 20 years in, like I am, you know a lot of different people. And so if I was going to make a record with someone, my first criteria would be like, do we get on? Could we have a fun time? Is it going to be fun? And the older I get, the funner it gets, again, because I sort of let go of it.
Yeah, definitely. Brain fart. I was going to say something.
You're going to say something super profound.
Oh yeah, I was going to take everything you've just said and just.
Oh no, we can edit it in. We can dub you on.
Edit it. When you
just
when
do
you
this
leave,
to the camera,
and
we'll dub on what you said.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And after you've gone, I'm going to put all these other witty retorts.
Yeah, and just dub really stupid stuff over what I'm saying. Can I get that water, please, Munchkin? Thanks so much, Times.
Munchkin's Jamie's manager.
Absolutely.
Not too much water.
Oh. Gotta keep my girlish figure.
Okay, so you've got your demo set up at home, so that's a good way to sort of get your ideas out and stuff.
Yes.
How have you found, when did you start doing that?
Well, I started doing it when I had a copy of Cool Edit Pro. I think my school gave me a student copy of Cool Edit Pro back in the day, and so I would record in that, which it's not really a multi-tracking program. It's a sort of a forerunner to what is now Adobe Sound Booth. I think someone told me that it's basically the same software gone through a few different iterations, and Sound Booth still has that sort of multi-tracking capability. So that's what I was doing all my demos on, and again, Fruity Loops. I used to use Fruity Loops for the drums, and I think there's some footage of me back in the band days putting in the drums with Fruity Loops and then tracking on top through a pod, a Line 6 pod. And my setup has not changed a lot. I still go through the pod. I've got a nice little Steinberg breakout box, and I use, like I said, Cubase elements, Cubase Juniors. You can only have 4 tracks. No, you can have more than that, but it's great. And the little synths and sample packs that come with Cubase, they do me fine, if I want a piano sound. But I have, in my studio, I got a lot of instruments. So I've got not only the guitars, bass, all that stuff, but I've got a lot of brass instruments as well, because I like putting the brass hits in stuff. So I've got a trombone and a trumpet, and I've got a violin. If I ever want any kind of flavour that I feel like the MIDI samples can't really sort out, I can do that live there. I've got a passable mic. Really, the gear I've got and the programs I have, they're very good. The microphone I have is nice, and Cubase, for all I've been dumping on it, is a very solid piece of kit. And you would think that my results would be better, but I'm so bad at it.
You can't blame the gear.
I'm going to send you some of my demos, and you're just going to be so sad, because they're just terrible. So that's a bummer. Having said that, I have just recorded my own version of a Madness track for inclusion on the deluxe version of the new record. There's a little flexi disc, a square one, which is why I'm doing that. And I recorded the track myself for that. It actually sounds pretty good. And I played trumpet and trombone on it, and I used every ounce of my pathetic skill, and it doesn't sound too bad. So when I really try super hard, it's okay. But still, I'm using very, very basic setup.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a technophobe.
Yeah.
if I'm honest.
I can relate to that, and I've probably
I can see. You're terrified
yeah,
of
no,
technology.
but like I said, like when I was chatting with Mike when I did an interview with my mate Mike, like I deliberately didn't do a uni course because I saw all this kind of thing. I was like, no,
Very
computers, no.
Mm.
I ended up going and doing art instead. And I'm kind of glad I did because I think it might have killed it a bit for me. But
Maybe.
it was I have to force myself a little bit to be technical for the end goal kind of thing, you know.
Of course you have. But you're the dream come true, aren't you? Because you're in a band and you're a producer. And it's usually the drummer. I've worked with...
It's often the guitarist though, isn't it?
Do you think?
Yeah.
In my line, it was always the drummer.
I always found the guitarists.
Oh, well, there you
the
go. We
bedroom-
should have swapped.
Yeah.
But that's great if you've got like a band and the producer is in the band. But then it's tough to do records. What would you do if, like Broker said, I want to make a record with someone else?
I've really tried to think about doing that before, but
Yeah.
I
You can't let go.
no, I can't quite. I got someone to mix a couple of tracks on the last record.
Did you?
And it was cool. Like I think I'm a bit like you. What you were saying about like earlier days when you've got that specific idea of how you want it to sound. It never bloody sounds how I think it should sound, but I just have this kind of like, I know how we need to do it, and I need to do it one day. I need to let someone else have it.
No, I wouldn't recommend it.
No?
I think you're the absolute perfect producer for Broker. I can't conceive of how it would be any other way. I just think
We're gonna have a slightly different approach this time, I think. 'Cause-
Are you? I'll come in and I'll produce the vocals.
Yeah, there you go.
Put Duncan through the ringer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll love that.
Do it worse like I do.
Yeah, just shout, mate. Shout louder. Put the mic further away.
Yeah.
Make him shout louder.
That's great.
But yeah, because last record we just did all in the same room, no headphones, blam, no overdubs.
Dude, I don't want to be like a
Next
big
record is
fan,
not
but it's
gonna be like that.
perfect. Oh, you know, do it exactly the same.
No.
Quixote or is it Quixote?
Quixote.
Quixote?
Yeah.
I think that's just the perfect record. I really think everything about it is do not change it.
Yeah. Well, that record will always exist, but the next one's going to be.
This is true. There you go. I'm the enemy of progress. This is
Yeah.
what people say to me. They say, make a record just like your last one. And I go, get over it, man. And here I am being like, please recreate Quixote.
We
So
can make
no.
this mistake, and you
Yeah.
can tell us it's wrong, and then we'll do another live record.
Okay,
So,
good.
Okay, cool.
Good. All right.
Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about No, fucking hell.
Let's not talk about
Some of
life
these
right now.
questions are bullshit.
Let's hear them anyway.
I'll say them, and then you can start answering, and I'll interrupt you with a slightly better question.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
All right. Live versus studio, importance, etc.
Jesus Christ.
I wrote that. I did this in the bath. Oh dear. Okay. All right.
So sound like you
So
did it in a fugue mental state.
I think I did. I think I was high off the fumes from my lavender bath oils or something.
I had a sniff of the bathroom on the way past.
My wife bought me some very nice bath salts.
Oh, criminy. We just got some nice bath things. This interview has taken a turn.
I'll throw this in now. It's normally
Yes.
something I would have thought about at the end. But let's say an album that you like. If I say to you now, like, what's the best recorded album? Like something that you always come back to sonically that you're like, that's amazing. It doesn't have to even be like your favourite record.
No.
I know it's hard to sort of separate the two. It doesn't have to be.
No,
your
I
favourite
know. I know
record,
exactly what
but-
you mean. I quite like separating these things. It's got to be Elron by Barkmarket.
Right. Okay.
Do you know it?
No.
Oh, wow. Because it's Dave Sardi's band again, and he's the guitarist.
Yeah.
So here's a guy who is a producer, but also he's got a band, and he produced all the records, and like right on because he's one of these superstar producers.
Yeah.
And he's the guitarist, and his until sort of the early 2000s when he did 100 Reasons record and Oasis's record and Marilyn Manson's record, his albums lost their signature sound. Before then he definitely had a signature. He did, I would quite coincidentally, when I was a kid, before I really knew the distinction between like artist to producer, band to producer, I would just look on the back of all of my favourite albums and find out they were all by this guy Dave Sardi.
Yeah.
And then only years later did I discover his band, Barkmarket, and their third and final album, Elron, is just
I
exquisite.
kind of know the band, but I need to.
I'm sure I would have
listen to it
played you
properly.
some when we came and had that big video jam. at
Yeah.
Black Peaks. It just the vibe is just.
What's the video?
everything.
Like the video?
The video for Barkmarket? They don't really have any.
No,
They're
okay,
sort of
maybe we just listened to
underground.
some.
Yeah, we wouldn't have watched the video. There's nothing off Elron that has a video.
What is it you love about that? Like just.
So much space and so much texture. You know, I love records with like a big roomy drum sound. You can hear the room and you can hear the drums pinging off the walls. I love that. Which isn't to say I don't love like close sounding stuff, but I always like a bit of texture. I like to hear where we are, and here's bass tones on the bass guitar. I really like when you hit the bottom note of piano, you get that clang of like a hammer hitting a string, and you get it. That's my favorite kind of bass tone. His guitars are very quite scratchy, not usually what I go for. When I play guitar, my guitar tone is quite full and chuggy and fuzzy. His are a little bit wiry, and his vocals are always through some kind of tank microphone or in the corner of the room. Lots of room sounds, and then, I mean, that's just the instruments and the voice. And then apart from that, you can always hear like someone's pressing play on a tape machine, or someone is like kicking a dustbin outside. And Elron particularly, a lot of it sounds like a person on the verge of a severe mental breakdown.
Perfect.
And it's just so chaotic and fractured. And the amazing thing is that when you hear this record that sounds like it was recorded all in one go live, some of it sounds like they've never played the songs before. And you think, wow, this must have been like real seat of the pants type stuff. We're capturing real lightning in a bottle here. And you look at videos of the band playing the same songs. Every note is present. Even the things that you think on the record must have been a last minute ad lib. They
It's
are
all
there live.
Yeah, that's like Trout Mask replica. Trout Mask replica.
Trout Mask, I don't know that record. That's Beefheart, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's got that similar like calamity to it, where it sounds off the cuff. But then I watched a documentary about it, and he was just a taskmaster with the band. I
Wow.
think Frank Zappa produced it as well, and like every note, like everything on that.
That's the peak of their collaboration, isn't it? Zappa and Beefheart?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know loads about that whole thing.
Okay.
But
I'm
like,
just reading the
that's-
book about Beefheart's press manager, actually. Went on to do the Beatles as well. So I'll have a look if he says anything about it. But yeah, I just think, I mean, I would really recommend.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
for
this
your
is
ears, listen to Elron. Everyone, listen. I mean, I've put Elron. I even put it under suggested listening in the liners for my first solo album. Really, it's such a huge influence
cool.
on me. And all their records, maybe not the first couple, they're a bit embryonic, but certainly Gimmick and then Elron are just incredible. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, this is perfect, because this is why, like, that's one of my favourite questions to ask most people, because
Just for yourself personally.
yeah, just selfishly, because it's so easy when you're doing this stuff, especially because you spend so much time listening to the bands you're recording and mixing, that you kind of have to be like, now and then you have to remind yourself to actually go and listen to something else.
Of course. Yeah.
From a sonic point of view, but also my next question, enough of me, what's a record that you love that maybe doesn't sonically sound amazing, but perhaps the vibe overcomes that, or the songs overcome that?
That is a fascinating question. What is a record that I don't think really comes through in the production, but I still love? Amazing, man. I mean, the first things that spring to mind are like the early Beatles records and maybe the early Specials records, but that's not really fair, because they knew what they were doing, and maybe some of the sounds on those first Beatles records like aren't as crisp as they could be, and obviously they were learning a lot about it at the studio. And if you listen to them talk about it, you know, the EMI studios at the time when the Beatles first went in, the studio engineers literally were in white coats. It was a laboratory. It was a scientific place, right? That you measured, and the artists were like a strange animal that you were almost lab testing, and they weren't built up. And George Martin himself was more used to producing like classical music and the Goons. You know, I don't know how much experience he had with rock and roll bands. So they evolved together. But then, man, they're not missing anything. It's only because my ears are used to modern records and how crisp and how separate everything is, that to hear that they bounce like the bass, the guitars and the drums all on one track and all on the left channel, you go, what? But then when you listen to it, you can't argue with any of those records. So that's my gut instinct, but that gut instinct is wrong because they're perfect, and it's only my snobbery about how we should record records that makes me say that.
But that is the vibe over... Yeah, vibe over perfection, because I guess that's like what I'm getting at in a way, like same thing, like relating to people that perhaps, not necessarily even if you're technically into music, but if you're just like obsessing about music, like it's really easy to just be distracted by the sound of a record, I think. Especially now that so much has been done in terms of so-called perfection.
Yeah.
That if you listen to something that came out last week that was recorded in that way,
Of course.
it's sometimes, and I'm saying this to myself, like you really have to try and listen past that sometimes and listen to the vibe and stuff, because...
I think so. I think we were talking about doing some of my new record in a sort of Jeff Emerick style, with just one mic over the kit, the Beatles engineer Jeff Emerick. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And I do listen to some records that were recorded very basically like C.W. Stone King's records. He does a whole band with two mics. It's one for the vocals, one for everything else.
Yeah,
and you
just get everyone.
You get
in the
your
right
levels.
place.
Yeah, and even between songs that were shifted, but they still sound great. I've got to say, I listened to News of the World the other day, which I love that record. And actually, when we had it on in the car, I thought it's a bit muffled and not, some of the production on that is a bit bluffy, I think. So if I had to say, because I adore that album, News of the World, but some of it is a little bit indistinct. And I think it could have benefited from a little bit more clarity. So if I had to pick one, maybe I would say News of the World. The greatest ratio between like how much I love it and to how much I would like the production. Not so much
see through it, sort of thing. Because I suppose like with a record like that as well, you probably know that they were aiming for something else almost.
Sure.
Like, whereas some things like early Ramones stuff, I wouldn't have it any other way, kind of thing. It's more like they didn't give a shit that it sounded like that. I like to think that they
crazy,
felt like that.
Those early Ramones records, yeah.
But they got, the other day. They got loads of character, and so I need new music.
Listen to News of the World. You heard News of the World? Yeah, it's Stone Cold Crazy by Queen.
Yeah, of course.
It's like thrash.
No, it's meaning more to do with...
okay, sure.
Yeah. I've got some... We spoke about Broker, my band, and just as another excuse to plug it again.
Yes, please.
I asked them, because they're both big fans of yours, I was like, I'm talking to Jamie on Sunday, what do you want to ask?
Oh, that's interesting.
So
what do they want to know?
We got a question from each. One's kind of more of a statement more than a question.
Don't tell me who asked what, or I'll be like, side with them when I next see them.
Well, no, because you might want to... Right, I am going to tell you.
Okay.
But I'm just going to ignore that.
Fine, that's fine.
Because, my house.
Yeah, it's true.
Because this one we can get over with, because this is Lawrence. Current favourite cereal?
My current favourite cereal, I've got to say, because as some of you may know if you've seen any of my media that I've put out into the world over the past 20 years, I've got a reputation for cereal.
Big cereal guy.
There's a certain clip on a certain documentary. This is 5 whole minutes of me talking about cereal. And then I gained a lot of weight. And I wondered why, and I realised I look at the ingredients, basically poison in the box. So my cereal has had to come right down to almost nothing. And actually, in the week these days, all I'm allowed to get, I bargained with my trainer. I was like, bran flakes, and she was like, shredded wheat. And I was like, Weetabix. She's like, Weetabix is allowed. And I was like, once a week a bowl of Cocoa Pops. She's like, once a week you can have Cocoa Pops. So I only
cheat day.
It's just a breakfast when we have cartoons and we will eat Cocoa Pops. But due to familiarity, even that has paled a bit, the Cocoa Pops. So these days we went on a holiday, and when I go on holiday, it's open season all week, baby, and I can eat whatever I want, and I don't even wear waistcoats because there would be buttons pinging off. And so when we go on holiday, I might buy a nice box of cereal. And we went to B&M Home Stores, and they just got everything in the world there. And they had a box of Reese's Pieces flavour multigrain loops. Multigrain hoops, is it Cheerios? Reese's Pieces Cheerios, so chocolate and peanut butter Cheerios. And I had some bowls of them. And I think that's my favourite thing in the world. and they're sitting in the cupboard because I only got a couple of bowls full before we had to go back off holiday, and the magic stopped. So they're waiting in my cupboard for the next time I go on holiday, and I'm going to eat them all. Wow,
Crazy.
Yeah.
There you go, Lawrence. I could have asked you off camera that and just told him, but I figure.
No, but you
people
got the.
need
I
to
did
know.
like a little play, didn't I? I mimed.
No
eating.
one cares about my 2 red buttons, really. They
I'm
want to.
interested.
No one cares.
I'm hungry for Cheerios now.
So, Nigel, aka Duncan.
Yeah.
Right. He said back in 2004, 2006. He downloaded some stuff that he thought was your demos.
Yeah.
So it would have been like Kaza or Soulseek or something.
Right.
And he hasn't got them anymore because his computer got corrupted or whatever. So yeah, he was wondering like.
Is this question? Can he have them demos?
I don't know. I'm
I don't
sure
know how
he
that
would like them.
informs like other people. What? No. What's his question?
He was just like, was that the case? Like he said, it sounded like you were sat in front of your PC, like demoing the songs, and he thought maybe he accidentally got them if you were on Soulseek or something.
Oh my God! No,
And he
this did
seeded
happen
it.
because Guy Davis, when like all internet
put it
music
all
was
up
new,
on
he synced his entire music library to one of those sites.
So that was the case, kind of thing.
It may, if that's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of, and
He said
I
it would have been-
saw that like all my demos were online. I was like, man, I'm going to use some of these.
I can't remember the others. He said
Take
it's
these
definitely Song for Saturday was one of them.
Oh. No, maybe not. I mean, we did demo a lot of the stuff. There's like lots of different versions of Song for Saturday. So maybe not.
Maybe
So
not.
don't go looking for that other stuff that was later on.
He lost it all anyway. His
He
computer
doesn't
died.
have it
So.
anymore. So we don't know Duncan, Nigel. Sorry. It's
thinking-
never good when people say, in 2004.
Yeah.
Any sentence that starts there, I go, oh God,
I was going to talk about.
what did I do?
I saw you first, and I think only time I saw Ruben was at Buck and Skip Festival. Do you remember that?
Of course I do. I'd
Yeah.
shaved my eyebrows off.
Especially, or just
On
happened
the
to.
on the previous tour, Buck and Skip was really good, and the Blueprint played, and I got home just in time to see the finale of Doctor Who. It was a great day. Yes, I
But
remember
Millie
very
and Dead
well.
didn't play, and I was disappointed.
Did they not?
No, they got their van broke down or something because
Oh man, that was always
it
happening.
was that album Harmony.
Harmony
no,
no Harmony.
Yeah, I was so into that record at the
Is that the
time,
second
and they
one?
didn't play. Yeah.
It's very, very good.
I loved that, and yeah, they didn't play, but you guys played, and that was awesome. And
I did a
Biffy
little
Clyro
cover of
played.
Engine Driver. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as good as theirs, but you know, just so you know.
Okay. Cool.
Did Biffy play Buck and Skip? Yeah, of course they did. Yeah, we were all there. That was it was one of those times where like the scene was all together. I mean, there's lots of them, but thinking back now, that was one of the highlights.
Yeah, that
great.
was cool, and that was really unusual because I'm from Reading. I lived there, and
Oh right,
that was probably not. Yeah, I know, dude. That's what I was going to say because I was like, this is happening. Like,
Right.
my end, and
Yeah.
apart from the festival, you know, it's dick all going on in Reading.
Sure.
Should we have a quick chat about your latest record?
Please. That's why I'm
'Cause-
here. That's
yeah.
why I agreed to come so I could get
It
some
sa-
plug
it
a lug a lug lug.
sounds really cool.
Oh, does
that
it?
Was, that was my first thing. I was
thanks.
just like, I didn't really know much about it, and I didn't realise it was a covers record and stuff to start with, and I just heard the Popeye,
Yeah.
and I was just like, Jesus,
Wow.
it was like a full-on assault. So
That was we thought that would
Fair
be good
play.
for an opening salvo, just to tell everyone. It sort of backfired a bit because, on the one hand, it says like, "This ain't your granny's covers album. This isn't going to be Bill Tarmay just singing
Yeah.
the hits," which is a record I have, by the way, Bill Tarmay. Because there's a certain conception about covers records that they're sort of a thing that like people in the twilight of their career put out when they haven't got any original stuff left, and it's usually like crooners or pop acts. It's quite rare for a rock band or a rock act to do a covers album, unless you do the other end of it. It's like the sort of the lazy, haha, ironic covers album that people like Weezer do, which is, I'm really happy they brought that out at the same time because it's nice to compare the contrast about just four people having like a smug joke and someone who really cares about music,
Yeah.
trying to do interesting things with things that he loves. And so we put out Popeye to say, imagine this. And then everyone thought, oh, right, so it's like 12 heavy metal speed thrash
Yeah,
covers
yeah,
of
but it's-
cartoon themes. And it's like, no, it's just one of them. I mean, that would be weird and good. I'm not sure I would have convinced my team to work with me on that. So everyone was like, so what other cartoon shows you doing in thrash
Yeah,
style?
yeah.
I'm like, none. And they're like, but Popeye. So it's always difficult, but then it's always difficult to give people a flavour of a record just by the singles.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're always in a bit of a bind there. But I thought it was a strong thing to go with.
And how was the recording process on that? Like, what?
It was great. It was because we did it with Space again. I did it with Space. We had lots of guest musicians. Obviously, Dan Cav come and played drums on most of the tracks. I actually did a couple of the tracks on the drums this time. It was the funnest record I've made because there was literally there was no holds barred. It's the nuts. It's probably even more nuts than Muscle Memory, the sort of half thrash, half folk one, because we just had all the. I likened it to playtime. It felt like playtime because Catherine, my lovely wife, would drive me to playtime every day and drop me off like you do to a baby, and the door would open and Space would be there, hello, and he'd take care of me, and I'd hold Space's hand and wave goodbye to Catherine. She'd be like, I'll come back for your own tea time, and then we would just go, yay, and me and Space would go into his home studio and just press all the buttons, and on things like Popeye, we'd hear this screaming, howling wilderness of both of us just yelling that we were Popeye into a microphone. And then
and who was Popeye? Who won?
We never found out. No. It's left ambiguous.
Okay.
But in the middle of it, we would hear, and I'd be like, what if we just had a computer just going like the sound of a fax machine from 1982? Space is like, definitely. And then he'd press a button and we put it on the mix. And you can hear it there. It's supposed to sound like the inside of your mind as you're losing your identity and you believe you're a cartoon character from the 1920s. And so that was the attitude to the whole thing. And I even Space, because we're pretty aligned as people and we hang out with each other a lot, we have a lot of similar ideas. I even had to sort of loosen his mind a bit. There was a bit where he was like, so what are we doing? And I'd say, right, there's a bit that goes, and then there's a bit that goes, ah, and there's a bit that goes, doing, doing, and there's a bit that goes, and I had to sort of verbally take him through the whole record, because it's in my mind and I know what I want, but he didn't know it. And then when we had that, he was like, right, cool. And from then on, it was like, just playtime. So in that aspect, it was really fun. But then and another aspect was quite tough because Space got a bit ill during the middle of making it. He went on a tour and he did 7 shows in one day or something. And he came back really ill and he couldn't breathe or see. And he spent quite a long time in bed. And on the one hand, I care about the life of my friend, but on the other hand, I sort of care about my mix as well. And so I would be calling his wife and saying, "Is he better yet? Can I come around and put some more reverb on that snare?" She'd be like, "Don't call again," until the end. I'm like, "Oh, goddamn." So he recovered, and then we made the rest of the album. And I'm pretty sure we even did some recording on days where he would rather have been under the ground, but he made it through. So it was hard but fun, and I think you can hear that. There was a lot of personal energy on the line there. We really put ourselves into it.
Did it take some... because you're doing your own slant on another song, I suppose. Did that kind of take some pressure off in a way? It's not like your baby in the same way, is it? It's
You're exactly right.
Let's have some fun with this thing.
Yeah, I think if they were my songs, if I'd written them, I would have been way too precious about them.
Yeah.
To not put all this crazy stuff on them. But because I knew that I had that already, the songs were already there and they're untouchable and their original versions exist, you can't ruin. I know people say whenever a new Ghostbusters movie or something comes out, "You ruined my childhood." That's the internet cry, isn't it, of the men children. And that's what you're saying is impossible. Ruined your child. It's always there. Those originals are there. So whatever you think of my version, it shouldn't affect how you feel about your version. You might even prefer my version, or you might hate it, and you still got what you want out there. So there was so much freedom, because I didn't have to be pressured, because I was confident that they were already material is so good, because I hadn't written it. So that I could afford to go way out on a limb with this stuff, and even more so for the stuff that people know, like the Beatles tracks or the Killer cover. So a lot of the stuff is quite obscure, but for the songs that people knew, you could even be more, you can go out further on them, because people already have a base rate, they know what they're dealing with, they have the kernel of the original, so they're readier to accept that any layers you might put on top. But that is why I was thinking about it, because I didn't write them, so it's fuck it, let's just do anything.
You can just do something nuts.
Yeah.
And did you do, predominantly did it at his home studio?
Yeah, we did it all there, yeah.
You did all of it there?
Absolutely, yeah.
So he's got a setup for drums and all that kind of stuff as well. Lucky boy.
Well, you know, it's a tight unit. I'm not saying there's a lot of space in there,
Yeah.
ironically, but I was very comfy because it's, you know, it's his home, which we hang out in
Yeah.
anyway, and then he's got his studio.
It makes such
outside.
a difference, doesn't it? Like,
Well, it
that's
does.
another thing actually. Is like, what's your favourite kind of studio to work in? Like,
Well, I have to say that the thing is, if you are doing it at home, it does blur the working hours. And you can maybe run on where if you're on the clock in the studio, and some of this record, like without question, it's the most indulgent thing I've done. Because we just had the time. And whereas if we were in a studio on the clock and we had a finite 2 weeks or whatever, you make a different kind of record. And like I'm saying, going back to the start of my career, when we would get locked in for 12 hours and actually locked, we made a different kind of record.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just go to Space's house and until we both fall asleep, we can do what we want.
We can put another beep beep noise here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then also you might get distracted, like when I do work in my home studio or whatever, I might do like a bit of work and then decide that maybe Lionel should be at the front of the Thundercats display. And I will lose a lot of time fiddling with my Ghostbusters or whatever. So there's that element as well. And that's why a lot of people, one of my artist friends that I know, a guy called Michael Parkin, great illustrator, you know, he doesn't need to go to, he can do all his illustration work at home on his Mac, but he rents an office because he wants to separate home from work. And you clock off, and that can really work for people. And having done quite a few records with, let's say, unlimited resources, I'd be quite interested to actually go to a studio, to a place for a finite period of time and see what kind of record that makes to almost limit your resources. Having been very indulgent with this one, maybe the next one I make would be a bit more stripped down.
Like, we've got this much time,
this
much gear.
You got 2 days for the drums. If they ain't done, live with it. You got not like one take on the vocals, pressure much. But it would be interesting to work it in that manner. Yeah.
It's good to do like both of those things. That's why I've said like I've done that with my own projects, because I spend so much time spending, I don't know, 30 days or something recording a record, and then it's like we've deliberately said like we've got 3 days. We're going to get all the tracks done. You know,
it's not to say that one is better than the other.
No,
they're just different.
Yeah, it's different, and it's a different thing, and probably, I don't know, you need to find where your threshold is as an artist, and you as a producer, like it, you know, because presumably some people watch this, but some people watch it that are like,
presumably some people watch this.
Presumably, you know, YouTube wanted me to film it. They came round.
They did. Mr. YouTube came round.
We thought we'd talk.
Yeah.
We were here anyway having this discussion. Anyway, what was I saying? So
it's a mystery to me.
Yeah, as a producer of music, you need to like figure out where your band's threshold is in that respect as well. Like a lot of it's monetary, like it's down to their budgets and those concerns. Usually, yeah. But you also need to figure out where you're spending the time and the money. Ultimately.
Absolutely. I don't think this record, Shuffle, the covers record, could have been made in any other way. It needed to be indulgent.
Yeah.
And it needed to be like this crazy luxurious.
And so much of the creativity happened as you were making it, I guess. It's not like you've been in a room banging it out.
Some of it was very basic, as opposed to when I would do my records of the band and my originals records. I know what we're doing. With this one, sometimes it was quite a basic idea that I went in with, and it just built up, and Space has got so many great ideas, and we brought in other musicians, and they contributed so much, and, you know, I had no idea where we were going to end up, and where we've ended up is pretty cool kids.
What do you... with your gear and stuff, are you precious about what you use? Because I know you seem to have used the same guitar a lot. Yeah. And the same amps and stuff. Like, are you the same in the studio? Are you like, this is my setup? Do you like to... No,
not really. I always take that guitar and that amp to whatever session I'm doing. And if it's like a live session for the BBC or Radio X or anyone like that, that's always what you hear, because that's how I sound live. Yeah. In the studio, I'm much more open. There's usually on every track that has a guitar on it or a heavy guitar, there's at least one track of my sound that I think
your identity.
It's my identity, really, because I don't think anyone else in the world plays that guitar and that amp. I think I have the only two. So there's always in there somewhere. But you know, most producers have like racks of guitars and racks of amps, and we would go through and pick whatever different sounds work for whatever track. So there's usually a bass line of my sort of live standard Jamie Lenman sound, and then whatever sounds right for the track, I'm completely open to interpretations, and very rarely do I disagree with the producers or engineers on this. I'm very happy to whatever works for it.
Yeah, you should do a video at some point, or tell me. It's not really relevant because it's not studio stuff, but your current live setup with the it sounds nuts. Like, it properly sounds like there's a bass going on.
Did you see it at Bad Pond? Did you see the set? Oh right.
And at Lenmania last time.
I stayed to watch.
Of course I did.
I didn't watch Broker at either of them. This is how we operate. It's the shame. I fucking love Broker, but yeah. Well, I did
don't watch us live, you know. Just don't.
Have I ever seen you live? I don't think I have.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
When?
Boiler Room, Guildford.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
It was so amazing. You're like,
it was really
have
great.
I ever seen you
Never
live?
going to see it again. No. Because I listen to Broker a lot, and I watch your videos, and we're always like hanging out. So it's difficult to remember. It's like I sort of assumed that my old band toured with Million Dead all the time because we were just in each other's pockets. We did one show with them, and it was at the Concorde too. Yeah. So it's funny to think, no, I've only actually seen you once, and it's brilliant. And I think Duncan like flipped me off. I was like, hey man, it's a great set. He's like, whatever. I think. Yeah. I thought, oh man, maybe we're not going to be friends.
He gets a different persona when he's playing. He gets really standoffish.
And he was really friendly.
But he's also stupidly dry as well. So I'm sure he's just
a dry
just
guy. I'll bring some lube next time, Duncan. But,
ease him in. Fuck.
Ease him. We've got to make sure he's in a safe emotional space. But what did you ask me? Oh, a video of the live set. Yeah. I did do a video. There is a video if you want to. It's the Radio X guys in the studios. It's not separate to Radio X. I think it's the MPW. I could have that wrong. And I did a little explanatory video. But it's basically lots of people ask me at the gigs. Some people say, "Have you got like the bass on tape?" Some people say, have you got like a bass player behind the scenes? And no, I don't. Some bands do that. They've got extra musicians behind a curtain. But no, it's
Imagine
me playing
being that guy on tour. Like, I'm the
holy
curtain guy.
macaroni. Yeah, that's no good. That's good money though. I'd be that guy. Yeah. But no, it's a pickup made by a company called Submarine. Yeah. And I think it's just a sort of a cottage industry, if that's what it means. It's one dude doing it. Is that what cottage industry means?
I think so, yeah.
And he just makes these amazing little pickups, and they don't require any power. And you just stick them on your guitar. They're more, for the way he markets it, is more if you want to add like effects, like a nice flange or an echo or a reverb to a couple of strings. And all his demonstration videos.
Not the rest of them kind of thing.
Not the rest of it. It's just for isolating one string.
Crazy. Because it sounds like there's a lot of kind of two-piece bands around, particularly at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a vogue thing.
Yeah, and sometimes they sound... I don't know, it's not the one's better or worse, but sometimes it sounds like there's an actual bass going on. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like...
a really thick guitar.
Big, thick guitar, yeah. But you've kind of got a mixture of both, because there's bits where I'm like, there's a fucking bass playing.
Well, I've sort of got like I've only got I've got 3 pedals, and through different combinations of said pedals, I can make it sound like guitar and bass, or just guitar. So you can even have like bass breaks where the guitar.
Yeah, because there was one of the tracks where it just sounded like a bass.
And it just sounds like a bass, because if you take that thick string on a guitar and you put it into a POG octave pedal, take it down 12 notes, you then put that into a bass amp.
It's basically...
It's a bass. It just sounds like a bass. And even I didn't know it was going to work that well. When I found... And again, it was Space that recommended it. Because I just wanted something to thicken the guitar. I didn't think in a million years I'd have something that would sound like an actual bass player. Yeah. I just wanted a very thick, heavy guitar tone that would really carry it through. And he was like, well, why don't you try this pickup? And then when I put it to the bass amp, I was like, oh, right, we can't just have like bass parts.
Did you use any of that? Is any of that transferred into the studio?
No. In the studio, Fender actually sent me a really lovely short scale white Mustang bass. So sexy. So I played that on the record. I play bass as a bass guitar just for sake of ease. I mean, it always sounds better to play an actual bass than my guitar's pretty close. But no, I played the Fender.
I just wondered on some of this because a lot of the time when I record bands, we'll record like riffs and then put like a sub-octave kind of single note.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of that
like
going on.
Either side, and I thought
absolutely.
Like that'd actually be a cool thing, because often we'll do that as a separate track.
Yes.
To get it really, but if you've got a setup like that,
no, we piled it on.
Be so tight with it, it'd be really, really cool.
I'm just a very good player. Yeah.
I think we'll leave it there.
Let's leave it there in case we run out of battery again.
Yeah.
Editing.
What do you mean?
No, we didn't run out of battery at any point.
Cool. Thanks so much for coming.
Thou art welcome, Mark.
Appreciate it.
Really nice to be here.
Very cool.
Take care.
Bye.